2020 marks the 20th anniversary for Fox's first X-Men film. And after 2 decades, it is evident now more than ever that this movie changed the landscape for superhero movies forever. Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome to another Let's Discuss video. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, we are going to be looking at how X-Men saved superhero movies. Throughout this video, I will be discussing the state of superhero movies before X-Men's release, what X-Men did differently, and how it set the stage going forward. So without further ado, let's put our mutant abilities to good use and hop right into things. To start, where were superhero movies at the time X-Men released? What kind of state were they in, what kind of quality, and how were they seen in the eye of the public? Superhero movies were in a very strange state around the time this released back in 2000. You had some surprise hits like 1989's Batman or 1998's Blade, but the majority of them were absolute dumpster fires. With the more popular ones, as in the likes of 1990's Captain America, the unreleased Fantastic Four from 1994, Batman and Robin, and Spawn. And at that time, superhero movies were considered a major risk, because they hardly ever turned a profit, most of them becoming box office bombs. And often, for good reason. The majority of them were absolutely horrid in terms of acting, storytelling, visual effects, and just about everything else. Most general audiences saw superhero movies as a joke, cheaply made children's movies based off a cheaper form of children's entertainment. No one really took them seriously, except for die-hard comic book fans, and that wasn't enough people to make any sort of dent in the box office. Then enters X-Men, on July 14th of 2000. The movie forever changed the landscape of superhero filmmaking and the way these movies were perceived by general audiences. It was a smash hit at the box office, earning $296 million, which is equivalent to over $400 million today. It was also praised by critics and audiences alike and garnered massive word-of-mouth buzz. It was something new, something different for superhero movies, and something audiences had never seen before. It was darker but still fun, explosive action, lighthearted humor, a lovable cast of characters, and some really important and deep themes and messages. Whoa, hold on there for just a quick second. If you're enjoying this video, don't get stuck in the 89% who are currently watching and not subscribed to my channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right now to get more content just like this. And while you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And now, back to the video. X-Men managed to find that perfect blend of catering to all. It resonated with kids, die-hard comic book fans, and general audiences as well. It had its goofier and cheesier moments that haven't quite aged as well, had some really solid action both in terms of big epic jaw-dropping moments and some intense one-on-one bouts as well. It had some lighthearted humor for the kids, and certainly some stuff that's going to go over their heads. But what it comes down to is what X-Men has always been about, and they absolutely nailed it here. It's about the characters. These outsiders who are rejected by society and brought together into a place where they feel like they belong. Each of these cast members were perfectly casted, even if one awkward accent may stick out like a sore thumb. And that's very evident in both this first flick and its sequel. The chemistry is undeniable, and you feel that they truly understand who these characters are. And of course, there are those messages and themes I was talking about, and that's what X-Men has always been so focused on aside from its incredible and colorful cast of characters. The themes of prejudice, segregation, and the overall fear of the unknown. I mean, the movie literally opens on a mutant boy in the Holocaust having his parents ripped away from him. If that doesn't set the stage and tell people to take this seriously, I don't know what would. This perfectly mirrors the modern world in which mutants are on their way to being in a similar position. Mutants are known to exist throughout the world, and the US Congress is looking to pass a bill known as the Mutant Registration Act, which is meant to force all mutants to reveal their identities and abilities. Most mutants are essentially forced to pick a side during this divide. Either side with the far more radical and supremacist group known as the Brotherhood, led by Magneto, played ever so brilliantly by Sir Ian McKellen, or the more peaceful X-Men, led by Professor Charles Xavier, played superbly by Sir Patrick Stewart, who are attempting to take a more diplomatic approach. The Brotherhood, of course, decides to take a more hands-on and often violent approach, led by the same young boy from the Holocaust, Eric Lenscher, now obviously known as Magneto. The X-Men lead a double life as superheroes of sorts. They pull up their disguises, and with the help of Professor X's abilities and the Cerebro machine, they search for mutants in trouble in order to take them to their safe haven, the Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. They don't believe in the Brotherhood's way, in violence and fear, as they know this would lead to the public and the government pushing even harder against mutants and putting their kind and the future of their kind at major risk, as they will see them only as threats and not as people with abilities who can live amongst them in peace and even use their powers for good. So this leads to various inevitable clashes between the two mutant groups and really comes down to the individual audience members to decide who was right and who was wrong. The movie was so successful it spawned 6 sequels, grossing a worldwide total of just over $3 billion at the global box office. A spin-off trilogy focused on the most popular of the group, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, which has grossed almost $1.5 billion, and other more distant spin-offs being the 2 Deadpool features, which have also proven to be wildly successful, grossing a combined just over $1.5 billion. And the currently unreleased New Mutants film, if that ever does come out, with other possible spin-offs in development being another Deadpool sequel, an X-Force movie, and the inevitable MCU-styled reboot set to come from Disney. So that's all that stemmed from this first film within its own franchise, but how about the superhero genre in general? After this major risk became a smash hit, studios began to take an interest in this subgenre and were willing to take more risks. 2 years later, Sony dropped Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, which proved to be an even bigger hit, grossing a total of $825 million. The following year saw the first X-Men sequel release, which was received even better and grossed more at the box office. The year after that saw the release of Spider-Man 2 and the first Hellboy flick. Following that year, we ended up with the first of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. And then fast forward just a few years later and we got The Dark Knight, which grossed over $1 billion and is one of the most well-reviewed movies of all time and was an Oscar winner. But just a couple months before that, Iron Man was released. The first film in what would become known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which continues to dominate the box office to this very day, grossing a combined $22 billion across its current 23 films, including the current highest grossing movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. Superhero movies are currently the cream of the crop when it comes to the box office. They're big dumb fun, with exciting action, epic set pieces, iconic characters, occasionally gripping stories, and overall, they're just so easily accessible to everyone now. And all of this success can be traced back to this very first X-Men film 20 years ago. Of course, there have definitely been some stinkers along the way, some in their very own franchise, but nothing can take away from the legacy that this first film holds, and the fact that it kicked off this new age for cinemas with the dominance of the uber popular superhero films. If this big risk had been a big flop, there's no way studios would ever have given a film like Iron Man the time of day. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with me, and feel free to let me know your thoughts on the first X-Men film. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.